The first time Jade called it book club, Ryan almost believed her. Saturday afternoon, early summer. She stood by the mirror, clipping a gold earring into place, perfume drifting through the apartment like a signal flare. Not the soft vanilla scent she wore on nights in, but something sharper, meant to be noticed. Ryan leaned against the doorframe, watching the small rituals of a woman preparing for someone else. "You're dressed up for paperbacks?" he asked lightly. Jade's eyes flicked to his in the glass, then back to the reflection of her lips, pressing in color. "Dylan's hosting. He's got shelves of novels, you'd like it." He didn't like it. He'd never been invited. That was the beginning. One Saturday became two, and then every Saturday. Soon it wasn't just paperbacks, but brunches, late movies, whispered phone calls on the balcony. Jade's voice always softened when she said Dylan's name, like smoothing a wrinkle only she could see. Ryan told himself not to be paranoid. They'd been together 3 years, living as partners, weaving routines like vines, groceries on Tuesdays, Netflix on Thursdays, arguments about laundry that ended in laughter. Stability had weight, and he thought it was enough to anchor her. Still, he noticed the shift. When she came home from these gatherings, there was a brightness in her that dimmed when she saw him. Like a flame caught in the wrong draft. Ryan had his own storm brewing. At work, a chance most people never got, an offer to head the London office, a salary that would change his life. Twice he had turned it down, because Jade said she couldn't imagine leaving her family. Twice he had watched the future recede like a plane taking off without him. But now, as Jade leaned into the mirror for one last glance, earrings catching the light, Ryan's chest tightened. She wasn't dressing for family, or for fiction. She was dressing for history she wouldn't let go. "Don't wait up," she said, slipping her phone into her clutch. The doors shut with a quiet finality. Ryan sat in the silence she left behind, scrolling past the unread email from his boss. Subject line, London offer, final call. He hovered over the reply button, thumb trembling. The cursor blinked, patient as a heartbeat. Rain pressed against the city that night, slicking the streets in silver. Ryan sat by the window, half listening to the hum of passing cars, waiting for the sound of Jade's key in the lock. It came just after midnight. She slipped inside, cheeks flushed, her laughter still clinging to her like smoke. "How was book club?" he asked. "Good," she said, kicking off her heels. "We talked about Salinger." Ryan glanced at the untouched bookshelf in their living room. Not a single spine had been moved. The tension didn't explode in one argument. It stretched over weeks, subtle threads pulled taut. Her phone always angled away. Perfume saved for weekends. Plans with Dylan multiplying like unchecked weeds. And beneath it all, Ryan's own silence, his decision to play the understanding boyfriend, to swallow doubts whole. But the offer in his inbox grew heavier with each passing day. London wasn't just money. It was escape. It was dignity. It was proof he didn't have to watch his own life rust while waiting for Jade to decide what she wanted. 3 weeks later, the breaking point arrived without warning. Saturday again. She stood in their bedroom doorway, new dress hugging her frame, hair set as if for a celebration. "You sure you don't want to skip this one?" Ryan asked gently. "There's a new place downtown, Korean barbecue. I thought we could." Her sigh cut him off. "God, Ryan, we've been over this. Dylan and I are friends. That's all." He felt something inside him fracture. Not rage, something colder. A clarity that burned sharper than anger ever could. "If you don't trust me hanging out with my ex," Jade said, eyes flashing, "maybe we shouldn't be together." The silence stretched between them, thick as smoke. Ryan studied her face, every flicker of defiance, every ounce of certainty that he'd cave like always. And then, softly, almost kindly, he said, "You're absolutely right." She blinked. Relief touched her mouth, then faltered as she saw the steadiness in his eyes. "Wait, what do you mean? We shouldn't be together." The words landed with the weight of truth. Not loud, not cruel, but final. For the first time in years, Ryan felt the ground beneath him steady. The cursor in that waiting email didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like freedom. Jade's face flickered through a dozen emotions: shock, confusion, fury, like a storm breaking in real time. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I do," Ryan said. His voice was steady, his hands not. They trembled against his thighs as he sat on the edge of the bed. "You just gave me the answer I've been avoiding." Her laugh was sharp, brittle. "So you're throwing away 3 years because I have a friend?" "Because you have an ex who lives in our weekends," he corrected. "And because you don't hear me when I tell you it hurts." She crossed the room, mascara sharp in her eyes. "You can't just end us like this. Not over something so small." Small. The word stung more than he expected. He rose, moved past her to the desk where his laptop glowed in the dim light. The email draft was still open: London offer. Final call. Jade's voice followed him. "Ryan! Don't you dare!" He pressed reply. His fingers hovered a breath too long, then moved. "I accept. Can start in 2 weeks." He hit send. The whoosh of departure filled the room. For him, it was the sound of oxygen rushing back into his lungs. Jade's disbelief shattered into anger. "You're insane! A job across the world? You're abandoning me for money?" "For me," Ryan said simply. "For the version of me I kept putting on hold for you." Her hands clenched around her clutch. "You'll regret this." The words shook, more plea than threat. She stormed out, the perfume trail she left behind already sour. The apartment went quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and Ryan's own pulse pounding in his ears. He expected grief to flood in, but what came instead was an almost frightening calm. Like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing the fall is also flight. His phone buzzed minutes later. A text from Jade. "I didn't mean it like that. Let's talk. Please." Another followed. Then another. By the 5th, his screen glowed nonstop. Ryan closed the phone, placed it face down. For the first time in months, the silence belonged to him. And though his hands still shook, his chest felt lighter than it had in years. The week before London felt like living under siege. Jade's messages poured in: pleas, accusations, late-night apologies typed in frantic bursts. Ryan didn't answer. Each silence was a brick laid in the wall he needed between them. On Friday evening, there was a knock heavy enough to rattle the doorframe. When Ryan opened it, Jade stood flanked by her mother, Diane, and her younger sister, Haley. Intervention full force. "Ryan, sweetheart," Diane began, her voice soft with practiced warmth. "Jade told us what's going on. You can't just run away to another country. This is a crisis." Ryan leaned on the door, steady. "A promotion isn't a crisis. It's a choice." Haley stepped forward, arms crossed. "But what about Jade? You can't just abandon her." He let out a laugh, dry and sharp. "She ended things. I'm respecting her decision." "I didn't mean it literally," Jade burst out, eyes glassy. "I was upset." "You're twisting it." Ryan's chest tightened, not with doubt, but with the ache of being unheard for so long. "Then maybe don't throw ultimatums you don't mean." The living room air grew thick, every lamp suddenly too bright. Diane tried again. "Ryan, you've built a life together. Don't throw it away over misunderstandings." Misunderstandings. The word hit like an insult. Ryan pulled his phone from his pocket, thumb swiping to a folder. Screenshots glowed on the screen, the ones Ethan had sent him from Dylan's group chat. Dylan bragging. Jokes about book club. Proof that every fear Ryan had swallowed was real. He handed the phone to Diane. "Not misunderstandings. Lies." The color drained from her face. Haley's jaw slackened. Jade's cheeks burned crimson. "That's out of context," she shouted. "What context makes your boyfriend a punchline in Dylan's gym group?" Ryan's voice cut clean, steady. The room collapsed into silence. Diane returned the phone as if it burned her fingers. "Come on, girls," she murmured, guiding them toward the door. Jade lingered, trembling with fury. "You're cruel," she hissed. You'll regret this. You're throwing away the only person who ever loved you. Ryan met her eyes one last time. If this is love, I'll take my chances in London. The door closed behind her. And for the first time, he realized the flight wasn't running from her. It was running back to himself. London blurred past the taxi window, all brick and rain light, when Ryan saw her. Jade, waiting on the curb outside his office tower, hair wild, sweatshirt clinging damp to her frame. Security kept her at bay, but she stood like stone, hours ticking by. Against instinct, he agreed to one coffee. Public place, 1 hour. A chance, perhaps, to close the book properly. They sat by the window of a quiet cafe. Jade's hands shook as she wrapped them around her cup. No rings, no polish, just bitten nails and a desperation that smelled stronger than the coffee. I made a mistake, she said. Which one? Ryan's voice was even. The ultimatum? The lies? Dylan? All of it. She blinked rapidly, lashes spiked with tears. I thought I could balance both. I thought you'd always be there. Ryan studied her, this woman he had once loved, who had become a stranger hiding behind apologies. Why would you think that? Because you never left. You never fought back. You let me push, and I thought you needed me more than I needed you. The words landed heavier than she intended, truth dressed as regret. Then you thought wrong, Ryan said quietly. Jade's breath hitched. I can change. I blocked him. I started therapy. She stopped, fumbling. I'm pregnant. The lie was so transparent, so poorly timed, Ryan almost laughed. He leaned back, voice soft with disbelief. No, you're not. Her eyes darted, pleading. How do you know? Because we haven't touched each other in months. Unless it's Dylan's. Her face crumpled, mask breaking in pieces. She shook her head, whispering, I just wanted you to care. I did, Ryan said. For 3 years I cared. You didn't notice until I stopped. Silence swelled between them, thick and final. Outside, London bustled, oblivious to the collapse of a woman's last defense. Jade wiped her face, streaking mascara across her sleeve. So that's it? You're done? Ryan stood, leaving coins by his untouched cup. I was done the moment you said we shouldn't be together. I just took your advice. She didn't follow him out. The door shut softly behind him, but to Ryan it was louder than any slammed door he'd ever heard. The first Monday in London, Ryan walked to work beneath a sky that looked washed clean. The city hummed around him, double-deckers rattling by, shopkeepers lifting their shutters, the Thames glinting like a steel ribbon. He should have felt lost here, another foreigner swallowed by the sprawl, but instead there was a clarity to it all. Every street smelled like possibility. His flat was small, barely larger than his old living room, but the windows faced east, and each morning the light flooded in, stark and uncompromising. He liked it that way. No shadows to hide in. Jade's name still lit up his phone sometimes, calls unanswered, texts unread. The first weeks he would glance at them, half curious, half nostalgic. But soon they blurred into background noise, like traffic in the distance. The woman who had once been the center of his world now lived only in missed notifications. At work, the project consumed him. Deadlines, presentations, long nights and glass towers overlooking the river. For the first time in years, exhaustion felt clean, earned. His colleagues saw him not as the quiet man in the corner but as someone sharp, driven, steady. One evening, after a marathon meeting, he lingered on the bridge, watching the city lights bleed into the water. He thought about what Jade had said in the cafe. You never left. You never fought back. She hadn't been wrong. For years, he had shrunk himself small enough to fit into her life. But here, standing above the Thames, the air damp and alive, he realized he was no longer shrinking. He had stepped out of her shadow, out of his own hesitation. A message buzzed in his pocket. Not Jade this time. Ethan, his oldest friend, proud of you, mate. Drinks when I visit. Ryan smiled, pocketing the phone without replying. Some connections mattered. Some were worth carrying forward. As the tide surged below, Ryan let the silence settle around him. Not empty, not lonely, just his. For the first time in years, the quiet wasn't something to endure. It was something to own. He turned toward the lights of the city, shoulders squared. Behind him, the river carried everything else away.